The very last press conference at the 68th Cannes Film Festival for a film in competition, and the film is Macbeth, directed by Justin Kurzel. Enjoy the press conference. See you later.
Bien, nous allons commencer.
We're
Merci,
now going to begin. If the photographers could kindly take their seats in the room, and we shall now begin. I would like to introduce the people at the rostrum. At the far end, we have the producer, Ian Canning, who is accustomed to working with Michael Fassbender. He produced Hunger, Shame, and Steve McQueen, and then John McQueen. We also owe the King's Speech to him, and Top of the Lake, Jane Campion's TV series to him. On either side of the director, the royal couple in the film, and also a royal set of actors. They need no introduction. Michael Fassbender was discovered in an early film, and also in Hunger. He was in two of Steve McQueen's films, Hunger and 12 Years a Slave, and since we've seen him in Cannes, in Fish Tank and Inglourious Basterds, of course, by Tarantino. He has an exceptional career. On my left, the first French actress to have received an Academy Award for a film in French. I didn't check this, but she's in Cannes for the fourth consecutive year after Rust and Bones and Deux jours une nuit, Frères d'Ardennes, Inter alia, Marion, Cotillard. We also have Justin Kurzel, who is Australian, a director. He's known for Blue Tongue, the short film. Snowtown was at the Critics' Week. Macbeth is his second feature film. I have a question to each of you.
What was the most challenging in the movie for each of you?
Doing an intimate play like this outside in Scotland in the middle of winter was extremely difficult, but extremely important. And I just think that dance between this beautiful, tragic love story and these incredible words with trying to find a cinema that felt as though it was natural to the story that we were telling, that was quite challenging.
Marion, Michael.
Okay. I guess dealing with the language first. It's a bit rich, me saying that, seeing that Marion tackled it. But starts with the language. That was the sort of puzzle to try and break the rhythm of that and find the rhythm. And then to just make sure that all avenues on the day were explored. I think, I've said it before, it's a very uplifting thing about Shakespeare, the fact that there's so many different ways that you can do it, 1,000 different choices, and the language can always be interpreted in different ways, I think. And so it was kind of depressing at the end of the day to think, we explore everything, but also uplifting, and I think a testament to Shakespeare, and that's why we are still doing the play today, because the language is so extraordinary and the tale is so extraordinary.
Marion? Oui. Parle comme tu veux.
Moi aussi.
C'est plus simple en français.
C'est une pièce très intimidante.
It's a very intimidating play. The characters are intimidating too. I'd never felt so much pressure when trying to embody a character. Then we had time to do our work. Technically speaking, the text was difficult for me. First of all, it's English with a specific accent. I'm always afraid of not managing to pay tribute to a given text, particularly when we're talking about Shakespeare. So that, for me, was perhaps what intimidated me most at the outset. Ian?
I was aware of the adaptation of this particular adaptation about 10 years ago. So I think the biggest challenge was to sort of look at this incredible play and think, how, as a producer, am I going to bring the talent together that's going to make this film possible in terms of getting it made? So I would say that was the biggest challenge.
Why did you choose Justin Kurzel?
My production company, Seesaw Films, with my producing partner, Neil Sherman, we're a UK and an Australian company, so we're always looking for exciting directing talent out of the UK and Australia. And we saw Snowtown and thought, it's such an incredible film about, I guess, the sort of sense of grooming and the sort of a single, sort of male character bringing a whole community with them. And so, therefore, the sort of story of Macbeth made a lot of sense in terms of, Justin coming on board.
Madame?
Good morning. I'm Chaz Ebert from RogerEbert.com and the Chicago Sun-Times. My question is to Michael Fassbender and Ms. Cotillard. I never thought to ask an actor this question before, but when you are playing someone who has to kill so many people, does it take a toll on your psyche? And how do you prepare for a role like this? And do you take it home with you at all? Does it cause you? I know that it's only a movie and you're doing Shakespeare and so forth, but does it cause you to reflect on the intricacies of war at all, and the psychology of having to kill so many people or having to inspire someone to kill so many people?
It's true that when you're an actor, it's a job, it's a profession. When you're on a set, in a sense, you spend all day embodying a given character. So part of us is obviously going to be affected by that character. For me, this is the first time in a film that I found it difficult to slip into the character. I've often played dramatic characters, but never perhaps to this extent. All the characters I played so far were full of light or held out some hope. Yet in this case, all is gloom. Also, the character loses control of the situation. I found it difficult, in any event, to prepare for the film and let myself be swept away by the character. I don't know whether I've really answered your question.
Michael?
I think one of the things, I came across this play twice before we actually, before I took this on. I came across it when I was 15. It was part of the curriculum at school. And then once again when I was in drama school. But never did it occur to me that this character is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. It was Justin had said that to me in one of our first conversations. And that changed everything for me. And just as you say, it's not only the killing of many people, or you have a soldier that's engaged in battle month in, month out, day after day, but the fact that the battle takes place with his bare hands. I mean, the sword is a weapon of choice, and what it takes to pierce someone's skin, drive the sword through somebody's muscle, break through their bone, and then take the sword out again. If the sword fails, pick up a rock, smash someone's skull. Those kind of images, definitely I tried to dig up and explore to try and find that fractured character right at the beginning, and the idea that he's seeing hallucinations. We know soldiers today coming back from Iraq or Afghanistan that describe post-traumatic stress disorder, and the fact that they have these hallucinations. They can be walking down the Croisette here, and next thing it's Basra, and it's real-time Basra. And so that made so much sense from the beginning with the character. The fact that, is he seeing the witches? Are they there? Are they not? And his sort of unhinged behavior. Do I carry some of that home with me at the end of the day? It's inevitable that some residue is there, but I've worked hard to try and leave everything on the floor on the day. So a lot of time I spend in preparation, so that when I come to the day's filming, I can just really sort of, as I say, leave everything there and explore everything on the day, if as much as possible. Of course, when you go home, you're like, oh, I should have done it that way. On the drive home, all the good ideas come. But I try and sort of meet friends at the end of the day, and I wouldn't have many left if I was sort of...
You killed me.
Anyway, they're like, oh, here he goes again. He's talking about his characters. But, inevitably there is a residue.
Monsieur?
Good morning, Peter Hall from the Toronto Star in Canada. Congratulations on a very powerful interpretation of a classic. I have a question for Michael and Marion and also Justin. The images are so powerful in this film that I wonder if you'd ever contemplated the heresy of almost making a silent movie, of editing the bard. Did any of you did you discuss it? I imagine there was a great deal of collaboration, but did you think of removing even more language and just going even more with the images?
We were going to do a dance interpretation of it.
We were going to... Actually, I think I designed it as a musical once. This play... It's so elastic, this play. I was sort of reading today that a production of Macbeth is made every 4 hours in the world. And, which to me, it's one of the biggest blockbusters around then, and it's... I think that the words are so stunning, and they're so elastic, and they're so open to interpretation, which I think is why people go back and want to see it more and more, because it really breathes. And he's always hinting and suggesting at thoughts and ideas that you could keep digging. Our biggest challenge, I think, was how do you bring a cinema to the story? The fact that you're shooting in Scotland, where it's set, and you're shooting in that landscape, and how that landscape informs their tragedy, how it makes them feel very small amongst this extraordinary story, how it intimidates them. I think, like a kind of great Western, I think it was kind of integral to the way we made the film. So I think it was a bit of a dance between the two.
I think there is that classic thing, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And to try and sort of, mess with Shakespeare's writing, I mean, it's genius. So we definitely wanted to respect that. But then, as Justin said, it's about sort of filleting as best as you can to make it something that stands within the vision that Justin had, and also to have it as a cinematic experience as opposed to a theatrical one. But to really respect the text always.
It's pretty extraordinary. I mean, when you go and see the play, they talk about the battle off stage. So to be able to use cinema as a way of realising that battle, and especially our interpretation of Macbeth seeing the visions of the witches through battle, and how war and battle kind of defines his fragility at the beginning of the film. I think it was essential.
Monsieur?
Hi, Rodrigo Fonseca from TV Globo Brasil. Question to Fassbender. Could you please, congratulations for the wonderful film. Could you please define what kind of anti-hero, tragic anti-hero Macbeth is, and what's the place for a character like Macbeth, your Macbeth, in the world of today, the world of Game of Thrones, the world of such amazing transformations we are living? Could you please tell us?
I think it's the classic tale in terms of, Duncan is the king and enjoys the spoils of that title and position, and Macbeth is his, general, who sort of basically keeps the borders safe and continues the battle campaigns and keeps his kingship alive without the spoils of being a king. And so I think we've seen that sort of tale in real life and in history and in sort of drama and stories quite a lot. So that was a knowing place to start from. What sort of anti-hero is he? I think, he's somebody that, as we said, is very fractured from the beginning because of his job, and because he's a soldier, and because he hasn't been allowed to mourn with his wife the death of at least one of their children. We know that Lady Macbeth has lost one child, probably many more. But all these things sort of culminate together to, I think this story is about loss. People always talk about it as being a sort of story of ambition. Yes, that's true, and where your ambition can lead you and what you hope for and what the sort of the reality of that hope is. But I think it's a story of loss, the loss of a relationship between a couple, the loss of their child, and the loss of their sanity. That's how I see it.
Monsieur?
Hello, this is James Mottram from the Herald. You shot partly in Scotland, so this is a question, by the way, for Michael and Marion. Could you say what the best things and worst things about working in Scotland were?
Whiskey and whiskey.
Marion?
Je ne bois pas.
I don't drink alcohol.
Non, moi j'ai toujours rêvé d'aller en Écosse.
I've always dreamt about going to Scotland, in fact, ever since I was a child.
J'ai toujours été fascinée par les images de
I've always been fascinated by pictures of Scotland.
Je sais pas exactement pourquoi.
I don't know exactly why.
Pourquoi on est fasciné.
Why is one fascinated by that land? I'd never had an opportunity to go to Scotland. The first time I went there was for this film. And I discovered all the mystery of the elements that I had dreamt about, in fact. The conditions were difficult, the conditions were rough, but I didn't find anything really negative. The wind, the cold, the hail served the story, even if it was truly complicated. I have exclusively wonderful memories of this stay in Scotland.
Ed Gibbs from the Sunday Times. Congratulations to everyone on a fantastic, bold, daring adaptation. I have a question for Michael. I'd imagine that this role is quite a challenge, obviously, and comes sort of somewhat loaded. I'd imagine there's a lot of pressure with approaching a role like this, and I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you deal with that, and also if you revisited other Macbeths. Polanski's one springs to mind, but there are many others.
Yeah, it was pretty terrifying, the prospect of doing it, to be sure. But then, once you start your preparation, start to get into the workload of it, that kind of takes over. And I think the best solution for nerves is work. So yeah, I just kind of, immersed myself in the script and got on with it once the decision was made that the train is going to leave the station one way or the other, and it depends if you're on it or not when the time comes. I did visit other renditions of the story, whatever was available I watched. I just sort of, figure if it's out there, gather the information, and it can only help. Kurzel was my favorite out of all of them.
Monsieur.
Jason Gorper from Twitch Film and Cineplex. Just I was actually going to ask you about Throne of Blood, whether or not you had looked at other cinematic representations of the Shakespeare story to see what you could do to take your own spin on it. And in terms of performers, one of the things that a film can do that stage can't do are these moments of quiet. You are not having to project to the back of the room. And if you could talk about just in the performances of when you thought in these famous soliloquies of bringing it down to a much more intimate level to allow for later in the film for things to actually explode.
I kind of stayed away from the films. I mean, whether it's films, whether it's productions, everyone kind of owns a Shakespeare play. They've had an experience with it, and it's unavoidable. It's got so much kind of baggage to it. So there comes a point where you have to really do it from the inside out and find your own thing about it. And I wasn't interested in putting a concept on it. I was really interested in focusing on the words, the opportunity of shooting in Scotland, how that landscape affected those characters, and finding an intimacy with the verse. The beautiful thing about cinema is I can bring a camera just here, and the verse doesn't have to hit the back wall. It can just be here like a whisper, like a confession. And I found that to be extremely exciting and kind of effortless. So that became something that we were very excited about when we were filming.
Absolutely. For me, when dealing with Shakespeare, the idea of the language being the key to everything and finding the rhythm of the language, and it's sort of from there dictates itself, but it can also take over and sort of it become very much about dictating, Shakespeare. And it again was that fine balance of absolutely respecting the rhythm, respecting the language, but always trying to also respect and stay true to the state of mind and what we were trying to do in terms of the intimacy, in terms of observing a character coming apart from the inside out. And I think what Justin did very wisely was to sort of have the soliloquies almost being spoken to imaginary figures, which I think was a great insight for the audience to see the sort of unraveling of this man's mind, as well as it being very helpful for the actor. So, is this a dagger? It's such a hard scene with the imaginary dagger floating through the air or whatever way you want to do it, but to have the boy standing there with the dagger holding it in his hand and almost offering it up to Macbeth, this ghost character that seems to, we're introduced to at the beginning in the battle scene, and he remains throughout. I thought that was a very clever and powerful approach to that.
The words are very delicate. Actually, it's a real misconception, I think, with Shakespeare. I think they're very light to touch at times. So to be able to kind of get the point of view right in there and really kind of taste them at times, I think was something important.
Marion, c'était d'autant plus intimidant pour vous.
Was this very intimidating for you, particularly as you're French? So it's a double challenge, Shakespeare. Yes, but at the same time, the first thing that occurred to me was that it was a huge opportunity to play Shakespeare in English. Michael was very right in what he's just said. Justin always encouraged us to go deep down into our characters, plunge into the depths of our characters. We almost whispered certain things. And he helped me no end to find the right way of saying my words. These words are so very subtle and so very gentle sometimes against this background of violence. The violence in human relationships, the violence contained in many of the people. This contrast was quite dizzying. What's most troubling in Lady Macbeth for you?
Yes.
Well,
capacité à faire face
perhaps
à sa peur et que ça crée
it's
chez elle
the need to grapple with her fears. This creates a sort of imbalance in Lady Macbeth,
assez monstrueuse.
which turns her into a bit of a monster.
Le fait de fuir, en fait, un désespoir si
running away
si douloureux,
from this very painful despair
un mur de protection autour,
leads her to create a wall protecting her couple. I think there's a lot of love between these two characters.
trop abîmé.
They're just too damaged to be able to turn towards something more luminous. So she builds a wall based on power, a wall to protect them. She's consumed by ambition, but that does not give her more power. It's in no way uplifting. What she tries to do is to find a way of protecting herself. She looks back while running away, and that is what leads her to madness.
Gloria Scola, ABC National Newspaper from Spain. First of all, congratulations. Great film, very stylish, great acting. I was wondering, Macbeth, he's a traitor. He kills the king. He kills his best friend, Banquo. So is this play not the ultimate play about ambition, but about the danger of ambition? And can that apply for today's society? And also I was wondering, you said, Michael Fassbender, that you had seen the Polanski one. I was wondering if you saw the Orson Welles one, since they are paying a tribute to Orson Welles. Thank you very much.
In regards to the ambition, I mean, I think that, I mean, I was really interested in grief and what you do when you, how do you replace something that you've lost? And I experienced that in my own life, and there's something very desperate about those moments after grief, and where you're reaching for something to kind of fill that hole. So I was fascinated that these two characters were using the prophecy and using ambition as a way of desperately keeping each other together, and kind of holding each other together. And that became a very human motor that kind of branched out beyond power and greed, that I think is really contemporary. And as I think family is a very contemporary idea, I think we're all reaching for a tribe to have around us. And the tragedy about this couple is they look around them and everything they want is in the people and the families around them. And I think that sense that they don't have a community was very, very powerful. And it's, you can feel it in the words. So it's that became as I said, a real motor, a real human motor, that gave us a real insight as to their love story.
What was the question? I did watch the Orson Welles version, yes. Of ambition. Yeah, for sure. It's just hard for me because I think, like, again, I think what was so special about the way that Marion played the part was that we're used to this idea of a manipulative, ambitious woman. And just to sort of respond to the question earlier there, I found that she brought such a loneliness to the character. I felt like she was so alone. You know, her husband's out and campaigning. Probably, you know, they don't see each other for, 6 to 12 months, 18 months. They've had this loss, as Justin said. The ambition comes through, she's such a sacrificial character. She gives herself up to whatever supernatural forces are out there to take away her maternal instincts, to sort of be able to drive through this heinous act in order to save their union, in order to bring them some way closer together. And so the ambition, yes, it's like they wish for something, they think that this will change everything in their relationship, that they will sort of be lifted out of this bleak existence. And it's just not the case. So it's the classic scenario of be careful of what you wish for. But it's the violence in it that sort of sticks with me so much, and the loss, again, you know, that these characters have lost so much, and this is a desperate attempt to, as I say, forge this relationship, to try and in some way put it back on the rails, because it's been so badly derailed. And, you know, Duncan is a very impotent king in terms of his power and how he's sort of ruling his kingdom. And a lot of people would think that Macbeth is the rightful ruler, but Macbeth is a soldier. He's not a politician. He's not a king. So it's I think it's more than ambition. But yes, ambition is a dangerous thing. We all know that. I think we can see it in the world that we live in today, greed and ambition and what that entails. But I think it goes beyond greed with these characters. I think it comes from a place of desperation.
Monsieur.
Hello, this is Johnny from Bangladesh and Bangladesh. Congratulations, all of you. I want to ask Marion that you had previously played Lady Macbeth at drama school in France in the 90s. Was this your dream role for the big screen?
No. No?
Dream role for the big screen? Was this your dream role for the big screen?
Dream role.
Dream role for the big screen.
D'accord.
Dream role.
Excusez-moi. Ouais, d'accord. Non, donc
No, I've never played Lady Macbeth prior to this film.
Je l'avais vu jouer en fait en classe de théâtre par
At theater class, I saw Lady Macbeth being portrayed by another student, and I really did want to play the character. However, I'd never had an opportunity to do so. I knew that one day I would play this character. I imagined that I would play the character in French in the theater. Being Lady Macbeth in English was a marvelous opportunity.
Do you have another question? No? Okay. Yeah. Pardon. Au fond d'abord.
Hi, I'm from Angola, from ZEP TV. I'm Daniel Nascimento. I have three questions, one for Mrs. Cotillard, for Mr. Fassbender, and for Mr. Justin. Mrs. Cotillard, you just mentioned earlier the challenge of the language, and yes, you are the first French actress to get the Oscar. Do you feel the pressure to live up to all the expectations that we all have about you? And Mr. Fassbender, you have worked with so many beautiful and talented women. Well, now you got another one. What is so special about Mrs. Cotillard? And Mr. Justin, we hear the word Oscar associated with this movie already. Are you prepared for that? Thank you.
I haven't even seen this film with an audience yet, so you know, it's an incredible privilege being here at the Cannes Film Festival. It's the Mecca for directors, and I've had a history with my short film here and also my first film. So I'm incredibly honoured just to be sitting here in front of you.
J'y vais.
I'm very demanding. I'm a perfectionist. And I'm always afraid that I won't come up to expectations when playing a given character. When I prepare a film, when I'm on a set, I don't really think at that time about what people expect of me. Yet I'm always afraid of not succeeding. I always fear that I will disappoint people. Yet it's really a personal feeling. I'm afraid of disappointing myself. I think that if I started thinking about what other people might expect of me, that would hamper my work as an actress.
I think Marion is the best in the business. I mean, I think, you know, she brings a grace to everything that she does, which is just sort of within her, I think. But at the same time, she is very human, and I think when she portrays a character, the audience have somewhat of a mirror in front of them, and they can see elements of themselves in her. So, for the portrayal of this character, like I say, there was so much humanity in her Lady Macbeth, and just to be standing opposite her in scenes, there's the most engaged partner, somebody that is listening. You know, it seems like such a simple thing, but I think some of the best actors are great listeners, and she listens so brilliantly and responds to whatever life is happening in the moment, and is very generous then in return when she'll take something, use it, and then form it and give something back to you, if that makes any sense. And so it's very easy. We worked comprehensively together in rehearsal, but once we started filming, we didn't discuss things. We just presented them when the camera was rolling, and I really enjoy that way of working. And it was just it's an absolute privilege to work with her.
I mean, I can't tell you how brave it was for Marion to jump into this role. It's a really significant challenge, and but all my Christmases came at once. I mean, to be, directing these two together with these words is pretty extraordinary.
Monsieur.
Hello. It's Ninos Mikelidis from Greece. Two questions for Justin, actually. Congratulations for the reinterpretation of Macbeth to all of you. But you spoke about the landscapes, and I would like to know, because you impressed me how you presented it, almost in black and white, and I would like to know what kind of inspiration you had visually to create this. And the second part is regarding the first battle, which you show the horror of war of killing in close-ups that were abruptly edited, but in between you have some slow motion scenes. Why did you choose to put those in, and what did you want to create with that?
Being Australian and being surrounded by a vast landscape like there is there, and how intimidating that landscape is, I have a very special connection with what that is, and there was something about being up in Scotland that completely defined this film, and reminded me, I guess, of how small landscape like that makes us all feel, and how intimidating it can be. So and you kind of do believe that there are witches walking around this land. I mean, people sort of Marion actually did literally disappear down a bog hole in Scotland. It kind of eats you up, and it throws you around, and it's just spectacular and dangerous and very visceral, kind of like great westerns are. And I saw something there. I saw a kind of way in which we could use that, and I think the battles were all about point of view. It's really interesting when we were kind of talking to some soldiers that have come back from recent wars, and they were describing and imagining certain events that they witnessed. It is always in minuscule, and it seems to be always magnified. And I was very interested in not doing a literal interpretation of the battle, but somehow connecting Macbeth, what he endured, but also what he saw in the witches, and the idea that the witches kind of came from this energy, to me was really interesting.
Dernière question.
Last question.
Hello, Natalia Barbican from Cinemaholics. My question is for Marion and Michael. You already played your characters in the theatre before, and my question is, how did this performance in the theatre affected your role in the movie? And also, what have you discovered about your characters since the last time you played them?
Wrong person. I never played this on stage.
Neither do I.
Well, no, Marion. Never.
Just failed.
That's okay.
That was a good try, and it was the last question. Thank you very much for all the team. Merci beaucoup et bonne projection. En plus, on l'a dit 4 fois quand même.
Je me suis dit là, je comprends encore pas la question.
Non mais en fait, on l'a dit.